What's going on, everybody? This is your boy, the Scripture Plug.Albert. If y'all don't know, man, this has been a process. I had to take this down and put it up about 3, 4 times at this point, but hopefully it's working fine this time. Hopefully everything's going smoothly. So if you're just tuning in, and if you're seeing this in the future, bruh, this was a struggle. But we here now. We back at it. Hopefully it's working. And today we're listening to Useful Charts, episode 4 and 5, where he breaks down church history of the Anabaptists, Baptists, Methodists, and Quakers. So we're going to learn hopefully about the history. Hey, so hopefully it's working this time. Is everything good? Can you hear me? Are we good to go? Because I'm trying to learn, man. The devil's trying to take me out from this learning process. No, it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna continue to fight on. So hopefully everybody can hear me. Hopefully everything's good. And we're just gonna get into this video. Again, useful charts. If you're not following him, go follow him on YouTube. He breaks down a lot of stuff. Church history, biblical history, history about whatever. Useful charts, go follow them. But with that being said, we're just gonna jump straight into it because I don't want anything else to mess up at this point. So let's go ahead on and see what this is talking about.
On the left, I have the 10 largest Christian communions worldwide. Basically, each church icon represents 10 million members. So, as you probably know, the Catholic Church is by far the largest Christian group in the world, with around 1.35 billion members. Second is the Eastern Orthodox Church, with 200 million. With one exception, the rest of the list is all Protestant. So, coming in at number 3 is the Anglican Communion, followed by the Reformed churches, the Methodists, and the Lutheran World Federation. All of these groups have around 80 million members. We then have the Assemblies of God, which is a Pentecostal denomination that I've not yet talked about. We probably won't get to them until episode 7. Then we have the Oriental Orthodox churches. Remember, these are different from the Eastern Orthodox churches. We talked about them in episode 1, and they include the Coptic Church and the Ethiopian Church. Finally, we have the Baptist World Alliance with around 48 million members, and the Seventh-day Adventists with 22 million. I'll be talking about the Baptists in episode 5 and the Adventists in episode 6. On the right-hand side of the chart, I've added this map showing the dominant type of Christianity by country. So first of all, note that on this map, green represents any type of Protestant, whereas yellow is Catholic, red is Eastern Orthodox, and purple is Oriental Orthodox. The gray areas are those countries where Christianity is very much in the minority, representing less than 10% of the total population. Okay, on the main chart, I've made some changes as well. For example, once again, I've had to fix the Georgian Orthodox Church. I initially had it stemming from Russia and then from Constantinople. However, it was actually granted independence from Antioch, so I've added a line to make that clear. I've also added 2 extra groups stemming from the Catholic Church, but separate from the Protestants. The first is the Philippine Independent Church, which broke away in 1902 and is now in communion, among others, with the Anglicans. That's why they are colored purple. Note that I've also changed the Union of Utrecht Catholics to be purple as well, because they too are in communion with the Anglicans. The second edition is SSPX, which stands for the Society of St. Pius X. Their status is kind of up in the air. They are different from the Sedevacantists because they do not claim that the current pope is illegitimate. However, in 1988, their leader, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, consecrated several new priests without the pope's permission, creating a controversy that is yet to be resolved. Over here, beneath the Armenian Church, I've added a few medieval groups that have come up in the comments quite a bit, namely the Paulicians, Bogomils, and Cathars. I'll explain who they are and why I decided to add them to the chart, not in today's episode, but in episode 5, when I talk about the Baptists.
Man, shout out to all those people that are asking him to add these things. Again, I've barely heard of the Anabaptists and everything else. So all these little sects of Christianity that's being talked about is actually pretty cool. It's saddening in a way because it's like when we have come to the point where just so many things divide us, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's still very fascinating to see that though there are these little differences, I think anyway, for most of these um, denominations or sects that they still follow the truth. Now, I do really, really, really want to get to episode 7 because that's where they're trying to say that these heretic groups are denominations of Christianity. And that's something I just don't believe in. But hopefully, when we get there when we get there. But I do like the fact that he's open to hear about and add about these other smaller sects where people like myself just have absolutely no clue. So, for those of you who are interested in this stuff, man, y'all can learn a lot from this because he is breaking it down in so much detail when it comes to all these different types of sex. And the cool thing is, this video could be 5 hours if you just took the time to break down one sect. But if you ever wanted to learn about any of these individually, it's right up there for you to look into and learn.
So I'm going to keep you in a bit of suspense for now. However, another medieval group, the Lollards, I've added over here.
That sounds like
They were a
my
proto-Protestant group
neighbors.
inspired by the early English Bible translator John Wycliffe. So I felt that they deserved to be included alongside the Waldensians and the Hussites, who also fit under the category of Protestants before Protestants. Let's now move over to the Anglican section. Note that I've added the Scottish Episcopal Church alongside the Church of Scotland. For a while during the 1500s and 1600s, it was unclear which one of these would end up being the state Church of Scotland. In the end, Presbyterianism won out. However, I decided to show the Scottish Episcopal Church on the chart as well, due to its connection to the Episcopal Church in the US. You see, when the American colonies broke away from Great Britain, their bishops could no longer be consecrated by the Church of England, because that would require taking an oath of allegiance to the king. So in order to get around this, they were consecrated by the Scottish Episcopal Church instead. By this point, the Scottish Episcopal Church was independent from the Church of England and was not the state church in Scotland. Therefore, no oath to the king was needed. Now on to the Reformed section. Last time I failed to mention the two main Reformed denominations in the US. The oldest one is the Reformed Church in America, which started off as a branch of the Dutch Reformed Church. Most of its members merged with a Lutheran synod in 1934 to form the ENR Church, which then went on to become part of the United Church of Christ. However, some of those in the Reformed Church in America remained separate and kept the name, and therefore that church still exists to this day. In addition to this, the Christian Reformed Church had previously broke away from them in 1857.
Real quick, if you know, so for me, this is again, I'm still very new in all this. So what's the difference between a reformed church as opposed to the other types of church? Because if I'm not mistaken, all well maybe not all but quite a few Protestant groups are not only their particular sect but also reformed version of. So I've heard of Baptists and the Reformed Baptists, and there's they tag that reformed onto different sects. So let me know in the comments if you know what's the reformed part for. What's the difference between a reformed Baptist or reformed Presbyterian, or all Presbyterians are reformed? I don't necessarily know, but that's what I'm asking for, the difference between reformed and anything else.
And that church still exists too. When it comes to the Presbyterian part of this section, I decided to add the two largest Presbyterian churches in Korea, as they are the main churches in that country, and together they represent the largest group of Presbyterians in the world. Originally, they were a single church, but they split up in 1959. The original church was planted by American Presbyterians, so I showed the connection back to them as well. Okay, with that out of the way, we can now focus on the main topic for today, the Anabaptists and the Quakers. These two groups are very different from the Lutherans, Anglicans, and Reformed that we discussed last time. You see, when the Reformation occurred in places like Germany, England, and Switzerland, it's not as if all the Catholic churches in those places were shut down and new Lutheran, Anglican, and Reformed churches were established. No, instead, most of the Catholic churches in those places simply switched to become Lutheran, Anglican, or Reformed churches. And in many cases, the new type of Christianity was established as the state-sponsored religion. So in other words, the Lutheran, Anglican, and Reformed churches weren't actually new churches. They were simply old churches that changed their theology, and in some cases their practices, but usually only a little bit and slowly over time. In contrast, all of the groups that we're going to discuss from this point forward were actually new groups that were radically different from the Catholic Church, not only in theology, but also in practice. When it comes to the Anabaptists, one of the practices that they were most concerned with was baptism. In the Catholic Church, as well as in the Lutheran, Anglican, and Reformed churches, Christians are usually baptized as infants. The Anabaptists thought this was unbiblical because infants are not able to understand what is happening or to make a conscious commitment to follow Jesus.
All right, so Carol, appreciate you. Let me know that reform usually means theology coming from the Reformation. So Calvinists and things of that nature. So do the Armenians, is that part of the Reformation too, or is that still on the other side? So basically, what I'm getting from Carol, and she's right. By the way, shout out to Radar Apologetics. Shout out to all you guys in the comments. The hey Marion, what's up? So the Reformation is basically the Calvinist point of view. Is that what that is? Where they kind of just develop that mindset of predestination and everything else that Calvinists view. So is that the bulk of the Reformation? And if so, that is pretty cool. But then again, so I do still have the question: is the Reformation just for the Calvinists, or is it part of the Armenians as well? Is that just like a split between them from Reformation? And also, what's the difference? Man, I got so many questions now that I'm looking into this. So, if the Reformation and are reformed, excuse me, are the people that adapt Calvinists. So that means there's Baptists that don't believe in Calvinism. Because I'm not going to front. I thought most Baptists believe in Calvinism. Let me know, man. Let me know. I'm trying to learn all this stuff. Not for any particular reason other than I enjoy learning. I'm still gonna stick with uh my Protestant, what I'm saying, roots, mixed in with a little bit of Catholic roots, what I'm saying, mixed in with a little bit of, Orthodox roots. I'm a mixture of it all. Put it in, I got you. That's what I like. That's what I love to learn about. So I'm not gonna say I'm one or the other. Well, obviously I'm Protestant because, you know, that's what I have to claim. But I do like learning about everything else. So that's why I enjoy these videos. And shout out to my boy Chris for recommending these.
Instead, they felt that people should only be baptized once they were old enough to understand and believe and make the decision for themselves. The initial Anabaptists therefore baptized themselves again, which is why they ended up being called Anabaptists, meaning re-baptizers. However, the original Anabaptists simply called themselves Brethren. The movement started in Switzerland, so the term Swiss Brethren is also sometimes used for these initial Anabaptists. One of their early leaders was a man named Menno Simons. He helped spread Anabaptist ideas in the Dutch Republic, and hence the largest branch of the Anabaptists eventually became known as the Mennonites. However, in 1693 there was a schism in which some of the Mennonites left to follow a man named Jacob Amman. From that point forward, those who broke off became known as the Amish. There is a third main group as well, known as the Hutterites, named
Yo, this is crazy, y'all. This is crazy. Where I'm from, just a little bit away, there's a group of Mennonites and Amish folk. So this is actually pretty cool because I never understood the history. I never knew really where they came from. Kind of just thought they were, uh, you know, really, really, really old school type, Christians that just don't believe in electricity and things of that nature. So this right here, knowing that where it actually come from now, I like it. I'm here for it. Because I tell you what, the Amish, we have Amish country around these parts. And Amish country is very fascinating. So the fact that their roots are still here, let me know where you're, well, I don't, you don't necessarily have to tell me where you're from, but let me know if there's a big Amish uh, um, population or Mennonite population where you're from. And also, what's pretty cool that I found out too about the difference of the Amish and Mennonites, that the Amish still, if I'm not mistaken, and that if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. If I'm not, the Amish still work with zero electricity, dang near. But I do know they do take cars. They allow people to drive them, but they don't. If I'm not mistaken, they don't actively utilize electricity for themselves. And also, they still do the old horse and buggy and things of that nature. But Mennonites, I believe Mennonites are driving nowadays. I believe Mennonites are using phones. I believe Mennonites are doing a lot of things that are kind of like progressive. So it's pretty cool to kind of think about. But let me know in the comments if you have a pretty big Amish population from where you're from. But let's get back into this video,
after
y'all.
Jacob Hutter, who helped spread Anabaptist ideas to Austria and further east. Now, these days, all three of the original Anabaptist groups are mostly associated with simple living old-fashioned clothes, and a rejection of modern technology. However, it is important to note that when it comes to the rejection of technology, there is actually a wide range of practices among Anabaptists today. Generally speaking, it's really only the Amish who reject almost all modern technology. For example, they are well known for still using the horse and buggy instead of cars.
I exactly. And by the way, if you're stuck behind a horse and buggy, my goodness, that's gonna be the longest drive. A 30-minute drive can turn into 2 hours easy if you got a horse and buggy in front of you. And you got the double yellow lines and you ain't got the lines where you can cross. Ooh, that's rough. By the way, shout out to Yusuf in the comments. Appreciate your brother for jumping in. Uh, I feel you for being new and trying to just learn, but I will say that as long as you stay away from the heretical groups, you should be fine when it comes to staying away from the oneness belief, the JW belief, the Unitarian belief. If you're just looking into, the Orthodox Catholic views, Presbyterian, Anglican, things of that nature, I think you'll be all right. I don't necessarily think that that's very important. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't necessarily think that's very important to kind of know all the denominations, especially early on. But I would definitely look into Orthodox and Catholic understanding because their understanding goes all the way back to the original churches being formed, and that's where we get a lot of our history from. So I would check those out, um, and that would just be my recommendation to learn. And then if you have depending on where you're at, whatever church is near you, as long as they believe in the truth, as long as they believe in the Trinity, go to that church, attend that church. If you got an Orthodox church by you, go to that one Catholic church. Go again, any of the other churches that believe in the truth. Uh, that should be good for you. But appreciate you being here, Yusuf. Yusuf. Hopefully that's how you pronounce it.
But even among the Amish, there is at least one group, the Beachy Amish, who, for example, will use the internet, albeit in a restricted way. The Hutterites are the next most traditional group, but they tend to allow more colorful clothing, and in some cases even use cell phones. And the Mennonites? Well, aside from the Old Order Mennonites, who are very much in the minority, most Mennonites no longer have any extreme restrictions on the use of technology.
Yo, the Mennonites and the Amish, by the way, too, they can work their tails off. Let me tell you. At my job, because I have a few on the board of my job. I work at a rehabilitation center. So at the board of my job, there's a few Mennonites on the board. Let me tell you, they had a group come in of Amish and also Mennonites. So they had two different groups. One came in and built our entire gymnasium. Amish folk in there working hard, slacks on, dress shoes, what I'm saying, beard out, what I'm saying. That's what people see. It was funny too, because people in my job love to say, "Oh, you're a black Amish dude," ha 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 ha, because we live and work like real close with the Amish folk, and the beard and everything. I can't grow a mustache or like that, but they call me Black Amish. But anyway, I tell you what, they are some of the hardest working people, man. Them Obadiahs and them Jebediahs, they really get it in. They work hard, don't ask for nothing. They're just out there doing the thing. So if you ever need some work, and you buy some Amish folk, go ahead and get them. They'll get you right. They will get you right without a shadow of a doubt.
Conservative Mennonites still wear traditional clothing, but most Mennonites are actually indistinguishable from the average American. If you want to learn more about the Mennonites, I suggest you check out today's Ready to Harvest video, which I'll link to in the description. Ready to Harvest, hosted by Joshua, is all about the differences between Christian denominations, and he's almost at 100K subscribers. So if you haven't yet subscribed, I highly recommend that you do so.
There you
Now,
go.
I
Go
should
follow
point
that
out
brother
that
too.
although the Anabaptists first emerged in Europe, many of them ended up migrating to North America. This is because initially, North America offered more freedom when it came to what religion a person could follow. However, some moved east towards Poland and then settled in Russia in the late 1700s. While there, they were influenced by the radical pietists, whom we'll be discussing next, and therefore they took the name Mennonite Brethren. Many of them ended up immigrating to North America as well, and kept that name, which distinguishes them from the other American Mennonites, who were originally split into two main conferences, but who merged in 2002 to form the Mennonite Church USA. Now, before I get to the Pietists, I want to point out two Anabaptist groups that emerged much later than the original three. These are the Apostolic Christian Church, established in 1832 by a man named Samuel Froelich, and the Bruderhof, established in 1920 by Eberhard Arnold. In both these cases, the founders were inspired by the earlier Anabaptist groups, but rather than join them, they founded new groups. The Bruderhof, like most of the Amish and Hutterites, live communally, whereas the Apostolic Christian Church, like most Mennonites, do not. Okay, I now want to talk about pietism, which is based on the word pious, meaning a strong devotion to one's religion. Unlike the Anabaptists, who emerged early on in the Reformation, the radical pietists emerged more than a century later, in the late 1600s and early 1700s. By this point, Lutheranism was firmly established in many areas of Europe. But some Germans and Scandinavians felt that the Reformation hadn't gone far enough. They wanted to go beyond mere discussions about theology and focus more on a religion of the heart. Some pietists wanted to change things from within the established churches, but others were more radical and ended up establishing new groups instead. One of these more radical pietists was a man named Alexander Mack from Schwarzenau, Germany. He founded the Schwarzenau Brethren, also known as the German Baptists or Dunkers. The main denomination to come out of that movement was the Church of the Brethren. Note that although the Church of the Brethren emerged out of the Pietist movement and Brethren, it was also heavily influenced by Anabaptism, and therefore is usually considered to fit under that umbrella as well. Another Anabaptist church that falls under the Brethren category is the River Brethren, founded by a former Mennonite. They are more traditional, like the Old Order Mennonites, and exist in far fewer numbers. Now, I want to point out that the term brethren can be quite confusing because there are several other totally unrelated churches that also use this same term, the most notable being the Plymouth Brethren. I'll discuss them in a future episode, but for now, just note that they are unrelated to the Anabaptist Brethren. I also want to point out a few churches that developed out of pietism but are not associated with the Anabaptists and are thus not peace churches. These include the Evangelical Church of America and the Evangelical Covenant Church. Both of these denominations emerged out of the Scandinavian free churches. Free churches being those that were not part of the state-sponsored churches, such as the Church of Sweden, Church of Norway, etc. Okay, let's now talk about the Quakers. They are similar to Anabaptists in that they are pacifists,
Oatmeal.
but they trace their origins to England instead of to continental Europe, and never did live in communal settings. As we learned last time, the Church of England was established in 1534 as the new state church. However, like in other areas, there were some in England that felt that the Reformation hadn't gone far enough. In England, these people became known as the Puritans. Most of the Puritans wanted to change the church from within, such as Oliver Cromwell. But there were some who wanted to separate and form new denominations. These more extreme reformers became known as English separatists. Initially, there were many different types of English separatists. The Quakers were just one of them, as were the Baptists, which we'll be discussing next time. Some of the other groups were the Diggers, the Enthusiasts, the Ranters, the Seekers, and my personal favorite, the Muggletonians. All of these movements have since died out, but the Quakers and Baptists continue to this day. The main founder of Quakerism was a man.
Hey yo, what was that called? From Harry Potter, the Muggles. Is that where they got that from? The Muggletonians out here. Harry Potter stealing from Christian beliefs back in the day. And why they have all those names? Matter of fact, all those names actually lightweight sounded like things from Harry Potter. The Seeker. If I'm not mistaken, that's part of the Quidditch game. Man, am I tripping or is Harry Potter taken from church history?
A man named George Fox. When he was brought before the courts on charges of blasphemy, he told those gathered that they should tremble or quake at God's word, probably a reference to Isaiah 66 verse 2, which says, "But this is the one to whom I will look, to the humble and contrite in spirit, who trembles at my word." This is why the followers of George Fox became known as Quakers, even though their official name is the Religious Society of Friends. One of the distinct aspects of Quakerism is their emphasis on
That's
the
awesome.
inner light, or the ability of every person to experience God from within. This is why traditional Quaker meetings are usually unplanned and involve a lot of silence, so that each person can listen carefully to God's voice within themselves. Lucky for the Quakers and other English separatists, the origins of their movements coincided with the settling of the Americas. This allowed many of these controversial groups to avoid persecution by simply moving far, far away. Although that didn't always work either, and the Quakers ended up being persecuted in America as well. As I
Dang.
mentioned last time, among the first English separatists who came to America in the 1600s were the Congregationalists, who fit under the Reformed branch of Christianity. They were the dominant group in New England, and thus Congregationalism became the state religion in most of the New England states, including Massachusetts and Connecticut. One early exception to this was Rhode Island, which was established by Roger Williams, who founded the First Baptist Church in America there. We'll talk more about him next time, but for now, I want to focus instead on the middle colonies, just south of New England. This area was originally controlled by the Dutch. In 1657, a group of settlers living in what is today Flushing, Queens, wrote a letter to the governor asking that Quakers be allowed to worship there. In fact, they also wanted religious freedom to extend to all Christian groups, as well as to Jews and Muslims. Their request was denied, but the letter, known as the Flushing Remonstrance, ended up setting the stage for what would become the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the one that separates church and state and allows for the freedom of religion. Interestingly, one of the individuals
I
who
never knew.
signed the Flushing document was William Thorne, who happens to be one of my wife's direct ancestors. My wife is Jewish on her father's side and Quaker on her mother's side.
All right then.
Another step on the path towards religious freedom in America was the founding of Pennsylvania in 1681. It was founded by a Quaker named William Penn, who allowed people from all religious groups to come and settle in his colony. So, not only did Quakers settle there, but also Anabaptist groups like the Mennonites and the Amish. However, in 1827, the Quakers experienced a major schism, with those following a man named Elias Hicks becoming known as the Hicksites. Hicks was an early abolitionist and was involved in the Underground Railroad, which helped black slaves to escape to the north. Today, the descendants of the Hicksites are those who belong to the Friends General Conference, the most liberal of the three main Quaker groups. The non-Hicksites eventually split into the Wilburites and the Gurneyites, with the Wilburites basically being slightly more conservative versions of the Hicksites, and the Gurneyites going in a totally new direction. Basically, the Gurneyites ended up becoming like other churches in America, with planned services, pastors, and more mainstream Christian beliefs. Most of the Gurneyite descendants today belong to the Friends United meeting, although some belong to the smaller, more conservative Evangelical Friends Church. Now,
I
before
love
I
that
go,
name.
I
I love
can't
it.
really bring up Quakers without addressing this. I think most
Hey.
people assume that Quaker Oats was a company started by Quakers. Well, this isn't actually true. The founder of the company simply named his product Quaker Oats because by then Quakers were associated with integrity and honesty, and he wanted to be associated with those traits as well. If you want to associate actual Quakers with a product, that product should be chocolate, not oats. All three of the big British
I love
chocolate
both.
companies that started in the 1800s, Cadbury's, Rowntree's, and Fry's, were all founded by Quakers. Okay, so that was a look at the Anabaptists and Quakers. Next episode, which should be ready in about 3 weeks, will focus primarily on the Baptists and the Methodists. And then further out, I'll be covering the Mormons, Adventists, Pentecostals, and much, much more.
Mm,
So be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss out on those. Thanks
yes.
for watching.
Useful charts, everybody. Useful charts. Actually, let me just play it out so you can see. Useful charts. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that, y'all. all that useful charts. So I like it. I enjoy because I again, like I stated earlier in the video, I never knew about the history when it comes to the Mennonites and Amish. I thought that was just like that was their sect, Mennonites and Amish. I didn't know that they kind of branched off from the Anabaptists. So that's pretty cool. And then learn about the Quakers and everything like that. Speaking of, I'm hungry now because chocolate and oatmeal is amazing to me. I can eat oatmeal every day. Every day. Cinnamon, apple cinnamon, maples, the raisin kind, with y'all remember the old school oatmeal with the dinosaur eggs and like when you put them in, they became dinosaurs? Fire. I don't think they make those anymore. But yo, so that was, useful charts. So again, if y'all not go follow that brother. Now we're about to jump straight into the next episode so we can learn about the Baptists, so we can learn about the Methodists, like you said. I'm probably going to shoot for hopefully next Sunday, maybe depending on how everything goes, to watch the next two episodes because we're getting close to the end, and it's always good to get in and learn some stuff. I love doing these videos where it's polemics and apologetics and things of this nature where I'm reacting to these guys that are defending the faith or attacking other people's faith. But I also think it's very important to learn about these other things, church history, um, these particular different sects and where they come from because I still am on my search and journey. I may become Anglican soon. I don't know. I may become Orthodox soon. Never know. But I'm looking into these particular sects of Christianity to see, where I probably fit in or, where I feel like the Lord is leading me. But it's still good to learn. I like learning a lot. Speaking of learning, man, I just want to say something real quick. There is levels, and I mean levels, to this space. Yesterday, if y'all didn't know, on Modern Day Debates, there was a debate between Jake, the Meta Muslim physician, or whatever his name is. I don't know his full name, something like that, and Jay Dyer. And let me tell you something. I watched the whole debate, start to finish. And when I tell you, I may have understood not that much of what they was talking about. That just let me know I gotta, yo, there's just some crazy stuff going on. Crazy stuff. These brothers are going back and forth when it comes to talking about uh uh uh, uh philosophy, metaphysics, and all these things. And I didn't know half the things they was talking about. I wanted to root for Jay Dyer so bad, but I couldn't, really state that I knew what he was talking about. So I just wanted to share that because levels, levels to this game right here. When they was talking about the LPT and they was going deep down into the discussion between them, whether it's illogical or not, I man, bless them brothers right there. Bless anybody like Dr. Bo Branson, excuse me, Sig, any of these people that really get deep into the philosophy and the metaphysics in Christianity, because it gets deep. So shout out to them. I just wanted to bring that up. But with that being said, now we're about to bring up and get into the next episode. So we're going to be learning about Baptists and Methodists.
I go, and that sometimes I incorporate suggestions from comments. Well, one thing that several people wanted was an others section, so I went ahead and added one at the bottom. However, I also added a few other sections as well. For example, not all Lutherans belong to the Lutheran World Federation, but rather than include those Lutherans at the bottom, I included them here as other Lutherans. Likewise, I added other Pentecostals next to the Assemblies of God in order to make it clear just how many Pentecostals there are in the world, even though most of them do not belong to a single denomination or ecumenical organization. In fact, if all the Pentecostals were to create a worldwide communion, they would rank above the Eastern Orthodox Church as the second largest Christian communion in the world. Finally, I also added other Baptists, as only about half of the Baptists worldwide belong to the Baptist World Alliance. Again, if all the Baptists in the world did unite, they'd be much higher on the list, coming in just above the Anglicans. Now, the reason why there is no other Methodists section and no other Reformed section is because in these two cases, virtually all Methodists belong to the Methodist World Council.
Yo, look at that real quick. The assembly, excuse me, of God, and other. There's more other Pentecostals than there are actually the I guess you can say true Pentecostals, which tells me they ain't doing something right. There's something not right with the Pentecostals that they got. No disrespect to any Pentecostals out there, but for them to have that large of a other versions of who they are, that's kind of crazy. And also shows, again, I'm Protestant. I'm gonna rock out with being a Protestant for a little while anyway. But it also shows that, man, when you really don't have a base understanding of your theology or a base understanding of, history of the church, you even branch off from yourself many, many times over. This is it again, it is what it is. I believe that, at least where I'm currently at, that if you believe in the basic foundations of the truth, who God is, that Jesus came and died on the cross for our sins, that you'll be all right. But I have a feeling that a lot of these other Pentecostals here don't necessarily believe that. But anyway,
Council, and virtually all Reformed churches belong to the World Council of Reformed Churches. So there's not really any other Methodists or other Reformed to mention. There are other Anglicans, but at least for now, they number less than 1 million. So I opted not to show them since on this infographic, each church symbol is supposed to represent around 10 million members. Okay, there were some comments about the world map as well. For example, several people pointed out that Lebanon should be yellow, since that country is more than 10% Christian and Catholicism is the dominant type there. So, although it's hard to see, Lebanon is now yellow. Germany and Australia were mentioned as well, since both of those countries are split around 50-50 between Catholics and Protestants, with Catholics starting to take the edge in both places. But I'm going to do a bit more research into the most recent stats before making a final decision. In the family tree section, there's just one thing to point out. Many people requested that the Shakers be added, so I've gone ahead and done that. Their founder was an early Quaker, so I've shown them as splitting off before the other major Quaker groups were formed. Okay, let's now look at the Baptists. The Baptists, along with the Quakers and the Congregationalists, were among the many English separatist groups that left the Church of England in the 1600s. However, as I mentioned last time, most of the other groups, such as the Diggers, Enthusiasts, Ranters, Seekers, and Muggletonians, have since
Muggletonian.
gone extinct. The Quakers have always been a relatively small group, and the Congregationalists, although once a large group, are today relatively small, meaning that it's mostly the Baptists who are the modern day descendants of the English separatists. The two men usually credited with having started the Baptist movement are John Smith and Thomas Helwys, both former Anglicans. They ended up moving to Holland where they crossed paths with the Anabaptists and became convinced that Christians should be baptized as adults, not infants. This is why the Baptists are sometimes shown on charts as being an offshoot of the Anabaptists. However, while early interaction did take place, and while they did share one big thing in common, the idea that baptism should be for adults only, or at least older children, the two groups quickly ended up going in very different directions. And thus, I think it's better to see the Baptists as being an offshoot of the Anglicans rather than the Anabaptists.
Yo, real quick, shout out to ICU dog. I see you as well, homie. Uh, I don't think I've seen you in the comments before, so I appreciate you stopping by. And yeah, you're right. I've so far been enjoying his videos. Um, the information that this man has, I think he, I think it was stated earlier, whether it was in this comments or the two live streams that failed before. I think he's really unbiased when it comes to him putting up these charts and really putting in the information and the time. And also the fact that he, again, like I stated before, he's not afraid to correct himself and he's not afraid to, take suggestions from people that, say, hey, well, you kind of missed this one or, missed this little sect. And he just, plugs it right in. So does amazing work. By the way, again, shout out to ICU Dog because I see you too.
Now, in some Baptist circles, there's actually another hypothesis about Baptist origins. But before I dive into it, I want to point out that many Christian traditions have alternative views on their origins, views that often differ from the more academic narrative that I've been sharing in this series. For example, the Roman Catholic Church sees themselves as being the one true church. going all the way back to the Apostle Peter, who they see as being the first pope. In the Catholic view, everyone else split off from them, including the Eastern Orthodox churches. However, the Eastern Orthodox Church holds the opposite view. They see themselves as being the one true church, and they see the Roman Catholics and Protestants as being misguided offshoots. Even some Anglicans like to see their church as having an origin that predates the Roman Catholic Church. These Anglicans would say that the Church of England can claim an unbroken descent from much earlier Celtic churches that were planted in the first century. So, my point is that the Baptists are by no means unique when it comes to having an origin story that treats their particular tradition as being special. Anyhow, according to some Baptists, known as landmark Baptists, the Baptist tradition did not start in the 1600s, but rather can be traced all the way back to the first century through a series of fringe movements. This chart from the 1931 book, The Trail of Blood, illustrates the idea. At the top, you can see the mainstream churches, including the original state-sponsored church that eventually split into the Greek and Roman branches, with the Roman branch eventually including the various Protestant groups as well. The red dots, which make up a trail of blood, represent congregations of quote-unquote true churches that, according to landmarkism, would have been similar to Baptist churches today. And at the bottom, there's a steady line of red dots, meaning that in certain areas there existed a direct continuity between the first century churches and the Baptists that eventually settled in America. Note that there's a large gray area marked the Dark Ages, where the trail of blood is associated with certain fringe groups such as the Paulicians and the Waldensians. Which brings me to this part of the chart, because the Paulicians were in fact a real historical branch of early Christianity. Not much is known about them for certain, but they originally popped up in Armenia in the 600s. Most scholars think that they probably ended up influencing the Bogomils, who emerged in Bulgaria in the
I love these
900s,
names.
and that the Bogomils, in turn, influenced the Cathars, who emerged in southern France in the 1100s. Also emerging in southern France in the 1100s were the Waldensians, a group of proto-Protestants that I mentioned in episode 3. So, according to the landmark hypothesis, the quote-unquote true church can be traced from the Paulicians in the Middle East all the way to the Waldensians in France, and then from there through the Anabaptists to the Baptists in America today. Now, it probably won't surprise you to learn that I don't agree with this hypothesis at all, nor do most religious scholars, nor do even most Baptists. The general consensus is that the Paulicians, Bogomils, and Cathars probably practiced some sort of Gnosticism, and that therefore they do not relate to the Baptists at all. So let's now return to what we know about Baptists from verifiable history. Early on, there emerged two main types of Baptists: particular Baptists and general Baptists. Basically, particular Baptists are Calvinists, whereas general Baptists are not. And the reason why both types are able to coexist is because Baptists follow a congregationalist form of church government, meaning that each congregation is basically independent and can decide their own theology. However, that doesn't mean that they are the same as the Congregationalists, shown over here as part of the Reformed tradition. The Congregationalists practice infant baptism, whereas Baptists do not. The First Baptist congregation in what is today the U.S. was founded by Roger Williams in 1638.
Speaking of, how many First Baptist churches are there, huh? Why is it on every corner there's a First Baptist church of something? You can't be the First Baptist church if the other church is the First Baptist church, all right? Doesn't make sense. Confuses me. The first church I ever went to, First Baptist Church. And 2 blocks away, there's another First Baptist Church. And about 15 blocks away from that one, there's another First Baptist Church. Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm trying to figure out that. Speaking of, I'm gonna share a little bit of share a quick story with you guys. So I was baptized Baptist, right? That's where my roots were. That's the first church I went to, Baptist Church. And this is kind of a sad story. Don't judge me though. Don't judge. It's not really that sad. It's actually a misguided story. So, I was going to church at a young age. I was a bus kid. If you don't know what a bus kid is, that's when the churches from around the way have buses and they come pick up kids from inner cities. That's what a bus kid is. So I was a bus kid. I was on the bus first time going to church, right? Enjoying it, whatever. I was going to church. It was great. They was throwing candy at us. All we had to do was scream these songs. Um, this little light of mine. We sung that. We sung, I will never wait. March in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the those songs. Oh man. So then we had the boys over here and the girls over here. And then we had this, who was singing out the loudest. And back then we was all young, so we was all screaming like girls trying to get this candy. And whoever side won, they just threw and chucked candy at us. Oh, it was great. Baptist church. Woo, it was amazing. I don't know how great it was, to me developing as a Christian, but man, got candy. Anyway, long story short, one Sunday, right? So in my Sunday school class, I think I was in second grade at the time, so I was about 6 or 7, something like that. So I'm in, and I'm studying because we're doing the books of the Bible. So if you know the first book, second book, so it's basically if you can name the next book, and we was on Deuteronomy, y'all. We was on Deuteronomy. I was doing my best. I couldn't speak that good. I mean, I really don't speak that great now, but back then it was really bad. So Deuteronomy was hard as a mug to say. I was out there practicing, like, yo, I'm about to get Deuteronomy right. I knew it. You know what I'm saying? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. I'm there. I got it in my mind. I'm ready to go. Because if you got it right, they gave out gifts, they gave out toys. So I'm in there. I'm ready to go. And I know they're giving out a G.I. Joe. I love G.I. Joes. Little G.I. Joes, my favorite toys back then, especially when I seen them. So little G.I. Joe, it was ready. I had, I knew it. I was gonna make sure my hand was up first. Gonna make sure my hand was up first, so they knew that I knew how to say Deuteronomy and that I knew it was next. So we get ready. He's about to call on what's the next book of the Bible, and then as soon as he says that, my hand shoots up. But the brother don't look nowhere near at me. Pastor looks absolutely away from my direction and looks at somebody else who probably did not put his hand up faster than me. If I'm gonna be real with y'all, if I'm gonna be real, he didn't put his hand up as fast as me. I know it because I kind of cheated the gun a little bit. I kind of jumped the gun, so I know he didn't get his hand up faster than me. Uh, and he put his hand up, and then he said, "Deuteronomy," and I said, "Oh no, my life, my life is ruined. All the work I put in." Just for this brother to come take my GI Joe. So unfortunately, me being a 6-year-old kid at the time that I was, uh, when we went back and started learning, we had these bleachers, and he left his GI Joe on the bleachers. Just know, unfortunately, um, he didn't leave with that GI Joe that day. Your boy did. You know what I'm saying? So I just had to put it out there for y'all. I was in church, 6 years old, still in GI Joes. I felt wrong though. I felt wrong. I know it was wrong now, but I need y'all to pray for me, man. I need y'all to pray for me because I had to bring out the truth. I had to share the truth real quick so that because they're talking about Baptists. I was in the Baptist church. You know what I'm saying that you guys in the chat, y'all been rocking me for a long time. So I'm just coming out. I'm just speaking the truth, y'all. I took that GI Joe. I took it. Mm, I had fun with it though. I ain't gonna front. But anyway, enough of my nonsense. Let's get back into this. I'm probably not gonna stop anymore after this.
As I mentioned last time, most of the New England colonies had Congregationalism as their state religion, and therefore Baptists were not allowed. Because of this, Roger Williams helped establish.
No, Tom, what's the Candyman song? I don't know that song. I don't think we sung that in church. Was it? We sung and I said I wasn't gonna stop it, but yeah. Um Dang, what's the other songs we sung? Uh I got peace like a river, I got peace. Oh yeah, we sung that song too. We sung I can't remember the rest, but no, I don't know no Candyman song.
What is now the state of Rhode Island, so that Baptists and other Christians could have a place where they could freely practice their faith. Eventually, the congregation that he started there built this building, which stands to this day and which is known as the First Baptist Church in America. Prior to 1730, the Baptists were actually a fairly small group within American Christianity. However, that all changed with the First Great Awakening. By this point, some Christian leaders felt that Protestantism had become too intellectual. While they still felt that it was important to get one's theology right, which was the whole point of the Protestant Reformation in the first place, They also felt that Christianity at its core should be a religion of the heart. This idea had shown up in continental Europe a bit earlier as pietism, but hadn't really taken off yet in the English speaking world. But then came the First Great Awakening. Basically, the First Great Awakening can be seen as the start of what we today call evangelical Christianity. Unlike the more liturgical forms of Christianity, which focus more on communal rituals, evangelical Christianity is more focused on the individual conversion experience. In more recent times, this experience is often described as being born again. What happened during the First Great Awakening is that many preachers, such as Jonathan Edwards, started to preach more about the need for each person to repent of their sins and to receive the gift of salvation through belief in Jesus. This led many churches to become more interested in missionary work, which refers to trying to convince other people to become born again as well. Thus, among Baptists, the initial division that existed between particular Baptists and general Baptists became less important, with most Baptists unifying to become missionary Baptists, and those who did not support mission boards becoming known as primitive Baptists. Primitive Baptists are very much in the minority today, and the only primitive Baptist church that you're likely to have heard of is the infamous Westboro Baptist Church, the group known for picketing funerals and for promoting hatred towards gay people. However, let me be clear in saying that they are by no means representative of all primitive Baptists. I simply mention them because they show up in the media quite a bit. Now, one of the results of the First Great Awakening is that Christianity really started to grow among Black Americans for the first time, both among those who were enslaved in the South as well as
Yo, real quick, I gotta share this too, y'all. I gotta share this too. So I've been to my first church I went to, uh, quote unquote white church. You know what I'm saying? Another church, my other half of my family. Man, let me tell you something. Quote unquote black church. These black Baptist churches. Oh my goodness! If you want to be in service for all your life, I'm still in service from back in the day. That's how long these Baptist churches go. Oh my gosh! And then you get to go to the sister church, and then the auntie church, and then the brother church, and then you're just there. You're just there all day praising, praising, praising. Which ain't a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. But as a child, you ain't trying to be in church all day like that. But it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? So I just had to throw that out there. Cause man, this right here, talking about the Baptist, it's flashbacks. Flashbacks of growing up. Man, I tell you what, going to Easter Sunday was the longest day of all time. If you've been to a quote unquote black Baptist church. Longest day of all time, hands down. Ain't no way that if you thought you was gonna get out early is 12 o'clock the next day. That's early in them type churches. So, but again, shout out to all them. Love, 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 love. When people are serving the Lord, excuse me. But man, sometimes they get they get long. They get long.
among free blacks in the North. Most Black Americans thus ended up joining either the Baptist movement
Something
or
like
the
that.
Methodist movement, which we'll get to in a bit. In the South, Black Baptists were originally required to have white ministers. However, after emancipation, the first Black led churches started to form. Now, I should point out that because all Baptist congregations are technically independent, there's really no such thing as denominations in the Baptist tradition. Instead, Baptists have conventions, which are state level or national level organizations that individual congregations can affiliate with if they so choose. However, at the end of the day, they are actually quite similar to denominations, so I'm just going to use that word going forward. So, the earliest still existing Black Baptist convention to be formed in the US was the National Baptist Convention USA, established in 1895. Today, it is the largest historically Black church in America. However, in 1915, some churches split off to form the similarly named National Baptist Convention of America, or NBCA. And then in 1961, a different set of churches split off to form the Progressive National Baptist Convention, which Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a member of. Finally, in 1988, a group of churches split off from the NBCA to form the National Baptist Missionary Convention of America. So note that all four of these denominations have very similar sounding names, but don't get them confused because they are actually all different. As you might have guessed, the progressive National Baptists are more progressive, whereas the other three tend to be more conservative. In terms of white American Baptists, most of the missionary Baptists eventually formed the Triennial Convention in 1814. However, because of disputes over slavery, this eventually split into the Northern Baptist Convention and the Southern Baptist Convention. Although, note that the Northern Convention continued to use the triennial name until 1907. Nowadays, the Northern Convention is known as the American Baptist Churches USA, and they tend to be more liberal, whereas the Southern Baptist Convention has kept its original name and tends to be more conservative. I should also point out that the Southern Baptist Convention is currently the largest Protestant denomination in the US, with approximately 14 million members.
Mm.
This is smaller than the number of Catholics in the US, which is around 70 million. But keep in mind that when all Protestant churches are combined, Protestants in the US do outnumber Catholics. Now, besides the Southern Baptists and the other groups I've mentioned so far, there are still several more Baptist denominations to mention. For instance, there's the National Association of Free Will Baptists, Free Will Baptists being another name for general or non Calvinist Baptists. Then there's the American Baptist Association, which is a landmark Baptist group that holds to the trail of blood explanation of Baptist origins that I mentioned above. But perhaps most important are the so-called independent Baptist groups, out of which the Baptist Bible Fellowship International is the largest. This is the denomination that Jerry Falwell was originally attached to. Falwell is known for having founded the Moral Majority, which during the 1980s grew to become a major political lobby group for evangelical Christians, and which laid the groundwork for right-wing Christians to have more influence at the national level, something that continues to this day. As I mentioned earlier, the northern-based American Baptist churches went in a more liberal direction, whereas the Southern Baptists went in a more conservative direction. This led to the Conservative Baptist Association splitting off from the ABC in 1947 because they didn't like that the ABC was so liberal. Note,
Yo, real quick, DW, I am with you. I see you in the comments, brother. I am with you. I think too many times, like I'm very active on TikTok. I'm very active in the comments or just hearing, people have these good discussions and whatnot. And it's I get disheartened a lot when I go into these different rooms and there's sometimes like a Catholic room and they're just, crapping all over, whether it be Orthodox, usually Protestants, but whether it be Orthodox or Protestants, or, you go in the Orthodox room and they're like this, or the Protestants. Protestants are real bad with it as well. Protestants will not know anything about church history or, anything about the Catholic faith, and they will just try to do their best to dog out, Catholics and things of that nature. So it's really disheartening when I see that because I am someone who, like I said earlier in the stream, I enjoy learning from all different sects of Christianity because, like, I think it was Carol who said it earlier. If you believe in Christ, eventually once we all get up into heaven, we'll be that one church. We'll be, combined and rejoicing in heaven. So that's kind of my understanding, and that's kind of what I look towards and look forward to. So yeah, that's something that's really disheartening. I don't really see it much on YouTube, so thank God about that. But TikTok is a huge place for like the different intersect battles, and I'm not here for that. I'm here to support and grow the faith. Whether you're Orthodox, whether you're Catholic, Protestant, as long as you ain't one of these heretics running around. I seen Dizzy in the comments. As long as you ain't a Dizzy, I'm here for you. I am here. I just had pro life Chloe give her testimony. Beautiful. Beautiful. She's a Maronite Catholic. I didn't even know what that was. I knew, like, Catholic. I didn't know that there was another sect of Catholicism called Maronites. Came on here, gave her testimony. It was a beautiful thing. I've had brothers like Rabbi Ed come share his testimony. He's a Messianic Jew. Messianic Jew. Maronite Catholic. And then I've had people like Guy Logic, who is a Protestant, come on, share his testimony. And each time I was able to learn and grow and have amazing uh, um, eye-opening experiences, learning about how powerful our God is, that He can take all these people from all these different walks of life and still put them on the path to serve Him and spread the kingdom. And that's what it's about for me. That's what it's about for me. Whether wherever you're from. If that's what you're doing, if that's what your goal is, I don't believe in the uh, um, Christian fights back and forth. I think it's good to have healthy discussion, healthy conversation, but to just belittle somebody or trash them because they're not Catholic or because they're not Orthodox or because they're not Protestant is mind blowing. So now, granted, don't get me wrong. If I'm a Catholic and a Protestant comes at me, I'm gonna crush them. You know what I'm saying? But in love, you know what I'm saying? If you come at me crazy, I'm gonna have to correct you. You know, but just to flat out come at people for no reason and have these rooms that are designed to go at these people for no reason is just quite ridiculous. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's my mindset. And again, like I always will say, whether it's I'm really looking into the Anglican, faith and the sect of Protestantism and Orthodoxy. Those two, for some odd reason, are um, you know talking and speaking to me, and I want to learn more about those particular um, sects of Christianity. So denominations, if whichever one's more appropriate, or both of them. So that's where my mindset is at. But right now, I'm a Protestant, and I will always, do what I can to show love to everybody who's trying to spread the kingdom. So, and then, and real quick, because I do a lot of reactions to Sam Shamoon, and I know there's some issues with Sam Shamoon and some other folks, whether they be Protestant or I think it's really just a Protestant that Sam Shamoon is at, and I really don't think that people should be attacking, whether it be Sam Shamoon or even Sam Shamoon attacking Protestants. But that's just, what it is. And I'm not saying that he does, because I don't know of any time that I've ever seen Sam Shamoon just come at somebody for not coming at him first. But I just wanted to say that because I do react to a lot of Sam Shamoon videos, and I will continue to react to Sam Shamoon videos because I learned a lot from that brother. He is, man, amazing when it comes to scripture. And just like I'm going to learn from Radar Apologetics, just like I'm going to learn from Inspiring Philosophy, just like I'm gonna continue to learn from Dr. James White, just like I'm gonna continue to learn from Dr. Anthony Rogers, whoever else, because I feel that each and every one of these people can bring people closer to God, and ultimately that's what matters the most to me. All the inner fighting, is for the birds for me. So on this channel, we're gonna support everybody that supports Jesus, the real Jesus, not these fake Jesuses that other people try to make like whatever Mormon Jesus, whatever that is. No, we don't. We ain't supporting that. We ain't supporting a non-eternal Jesus around these parts. No, no, we supporting the eternal Son. So that's what we do around here, and that's what we're gonna continue to do. Um, so with that being said, let's just jump back into this because I've been ranting a lot. I just need to watch the video. You know what I'm saying? So we can learn.
That they recently changed their name to the Venture Church Network. However, in contrast, there's also the Cooperative Baptist Association that split off from the SBC because they didn't like that the SBC was so conservative. Finally, there's Converge, formerly known as the Baptist General Conference, and even further back as the Swedish Baptist General Conference. They have their roots in the Scandinavian Free Churches that also produced the Evangelical Covenant Church and the Evangelical Free Church. Now, I should point out that although I've focused only on U.S. Baptists, there are in fact Baptists all over the world. However, since most of those churches were planted by American missionaries, I thought it was best to focus on the U.S. ones. The one exception to this are the Baptists in the UK, who, like the American Baptists, can trace their origins all the way back to Smith and Hellis. Nowadays, most Baptists in the UK belong to a denomination called Baptists Together. It was also in the UK that the Seventh-day Baptists originated. I'll mention them again next time when I talk about the Adventists. Okay, let's now talk about the Methodists. Whereas the Baptists existed before the First Great Awakening, the Methodists did not. And in fact, it was because of the First Great Awakening that the Methodists were formed. The three big names associated with the founding of Methodism are John Wesley, his brother Charles Wesley, and their friend George Whitefield, all former Anglicans. Like many denominational founders, they didn't initially set out to make a new denomination. It just sort of happened. During their youth, they started a group at Oxford called the Holy Club, in which members methodically strove to incorporate Christianity.
Yo, would y'all judge me if I got one of these powder wigs and just started wearing it, just flaunting in, coming in, looking like a oatmeal man? Would y'all? Because I'm looking at these pictures, like this brother right here. I don't know if you can actually see the. I'm pointing at Charles Wesley. That right there, fire. I'd rock that. It looks warm. Looks like a hair with earmuffs. I like that. I'm here for that.
Into every part of their life. Other students made fun of them and called them Methodists, a term that stuck and which later became the official name for the movement. In 1739, after having done missionary work in the Americas and having come into contact with the Moravians, whom I mentioned in episode 3, the trio started to preach throughout England in unconventional ways, including outside in the open air. This attracted many working class people who had not previously been regular churchgoers. While Whitfield's theology was Calvinist, John Wesley's was not. He emphasized that salvation was available to everyone, and in particular focused on something called the second work of grace. According to Methodist theology, the first work of grace is the initial conversion experience of being born again, whereas the second work of grace is the process by which a Christian is transformed into becoming a more perfect and holy person. Just a few years after John Wesley's death, the first two Methodist denominations were formed, one in the US and one in the UK. In the US, it was called the Methodist Episcopal Church, in order to distinguish it from the Episcopal Church, which had become independent from the Anglican Church just 10 years earlier. Eventually, the U.S. Methodists split in two over slavery, just like the Baptists did. But unlike the Baptists, the two groups eventually reunited in 1939, which is when they became known simply as the Methodist Church. Then in 1968, it merged with the Evangelical United Brethren Church to become the United Methodist Church, which is the main Methodist denomination in the U.S. today. In fact, it is the second largest Protestant denomination in the U.S. after the Southern Baptists. However, recently it has experienced another schism, this time over the ordination of gay and lesbian clergy. In 2022, the more conservative Global Methodist Church was formed, and to date, at least 1,000 congregations have left the United Methodist Church to join it. The split is still very fresh, so it's yet to be seen where all the chips will fall. Like the Baptists, Black American Methodists formed their own denominations early on. So, in the early 1800s in the North, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, or AME, was formed in Philadelphia, and the AME Zion Church was formed in New York. To this day, they have remained separate, but as far as I can tell, there's not a lot of theological differences between the two. Then, after the Civil War, a third Black Methodist denomination was formed, this time in the South. It was originally called the Colored Methodist Episcopal Church, but nowadays is called the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. Okay, also separating from the original Methodist denomination in the U.S. was the Wesleyan Church in 1843 and the Free Methodist Church in 1860. They are both aligned with the Holiness movement, which grew out of the Second and Third Great Awakenings.
Holiness movement, y'all. I am very aware of the holiness movement because the my boss, he's a pastor. Well, he wasn't. Well, yeah, he's still a pastor. No, I think anyway, he's been a pastor for like 50 odd years, like 70 years old. So he's the one who actually runs the treatment center that I work at, and he is a Wesleyan, a holiness pastor. And it's weird because when I first started going there, so I'm from, again, Baptist churches. So my understanding was of, once saved, always saved type belief, because that's really rooted into the Baptist church, at least where I came from. So that was something that was just beat into my head. And not saying that it's, if you believe in that now, it is what it is. But I'm just saying where I was coming from. So when I first started working at where I work now, there was a huge conflict because he believed this, and I was like, "What? That's not what? How can you believe, what it is that you believe?" Because they don't believe in once saved, always saved. They believe in, being able to lose your salvation and things of that nature. And so in my mind, I was like, "That makes no sense." But that's because, like, and I think someone said earlier, whether it be Marion or Carol, that I really didn't know anything about church history. I didn't know that this particular understanding of salvation, which is, once saved, always saved, didn't come until, like, I want to say, like, the 1500s or something like that, 1400s. So that was something that was new to me. But to me, that was what life was. So now I'm coming in, I'm butting heads with, these holiness pastors and these holiness people that are at my church saying, like, man, they don't know what they're talking about. So then, much like a lot of our clientele, they, if they've had experience with church, they've also grew up in like Baptist style churches, so they've always had the same understanding. So there was like that conflict of, well, these pastors are telling us this, but we've grown up this, and it was so weird. And it wasn't until very, very recently where I was like, man, I might have been, I might have not knew what I was talking about, not knew what I was talking about. So this is I love learning about this stuff. I love learning about the different sects and understanding of church history and things of that nature. So for again, shout out to Chris. Uh, I don't know if he's in the comments anymore, but Chris, he is the one who recommended me to watch this, and I appreciate this so very much because it's just sparking up so many things that I was like I had absolutely no clue about, and then looking back, it's like, man, I didn't even know what I was really talking about at the time. So this is pretty cool. Wesleyans, I have, and holiness, though I will still never ever be holiness because, they're really strict with it. Long dresses, hair tied up, suits. And my pastor, or not my pastor, excuse me, but um, my boss, if he goes to the beach, that brother's going to the beach in slacks and a button down collared shirt. No, nothing less than. He might even go with his argyle socks on too. That's how deep, they really go with some of the uh, 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 I guess you can say rules that they have. So that's one reason I would never be holiness because, what I'm saying, I gotta, I can't go preach for that man. Let's say if I became a pastor, right? I could not go preach for that man with my beard. I'd have to shave. That's how like deep they go with some of these rules that they have. So, but it was always it's a breath of fresh air when I'm actually able to have my eyes open and not be blinded to all these different understandings of church history. So just wanted to share that because again, I was for a long time I thought I knew, everything, and then I really absolutely knew nothing. So shout out to the Wesleyans, shout out to the holiness movement. And again, anybody following Jesus, much love to you.
which I'll talk more about in future episodes. For now, I'll simply point out that these two Methodist denominations are, generally speaking, more conservative than the much larger United Methodist Church. In the UK, the main Methodist denomination was originally known as the Wesleyan Methodist Church. However, there were many smaller denominations that broke off from it to
Yeah, Carol, yeah, my good buddy I'm getting to know, Black Doctor, he's an Anglican. He talks about that a lot, about the church and how they're letting all these liberal ideologies come in and kind of take over. And my obviously when my pastor, excuse me, not my pastor, but my I guess he is my pastor on some days when he preaches, but um, my boss, he talks about that a lot too, and how they've actually really been becoming liberal for a while now. If I'm not mistaken, they have been I've been working there for 10 years. So I want to say since I've been working there, he's been talking about how liberal they've been, so obviously it probably stems even before that. So it's crazy to think about that, even though we know the truth and we have the truth, and a lot of these pastors preach the truth, that there's still the evils of the flesh trying to creep in and change things. And all denominations probably, I would probably say that there's a pretty big unfortunate liberal agenda, approaching in a lot of places. But again, that's where we're at in the world, where everybody has to be pleased and everybody has to be coddled and everything like that. Actually, real quick, I was watching a video, which actually I might do a live reaction to with a Frank Turek, and I was watching it, and it was Jesus intolerant, and it was a pretty good start. So I'm gonna have to finish that because I don't like not finishing videos, but I may come finish it up here because it started off talking about how Jesus was in the temple throwing things around, saying that people were making a mockery of the church and everything like that. So man, he would be throwing a lot of things around, today. If Jesus was walking on this earth, he would be going up into these churches, kicking things out, chasing people out. Man, he would not like what's going on. But with that, we're getting closer and closer to, his return anyway, and then all that's going to be stopped regardless. But let's get back into it.
Form independent denominations. However, in 1932, most of these merged back with the main denomination to form what is now simply called the Methodist Church of Great Britain. The well known Salvation Army denomination has its roots in British Methodism as well, but is aligned more with the holiness movement. So, again, I'll talk more about them in a future episode. However, I do want to mention two other churches that have strong connections to Methodism. First, there's the United Church of Canada, which is the largest Protestant denomination in Canada, which is where I'm from. It formed in 1925 from a merger between three Christian groups in Canada: the Methodists, Presbyterians, and Congregationalists. The Methodists were the largest of the three groups, which is why I've decided to include the United Church of Canada here with the Methodists, rather than with the Reformed churches. Being a Canadian, their logo is something that is immediately recognizable to me, since I see it a lot on church signs. What I didn't know until I started doing research for this video is that three of the four symbols represent the three traditions that merged back in 1925. The dove is a common symbol used by Methodists. The burning bush is a common symbol used by Presbyterians. And the open Bible represents the Congregationalists. The final symbol, the Alpha and the Omega, is a symbol for Jesus. And the four colors used in the design, white, red, yellow, and black, are colors often associated with Indigenous Canadians. In Australia, there is a similar church, known as the Uniting Church of Australia. It too formed from a merger between Congregationalists, Presbyterians, and Methodists. I'm not sure if the Methodists make up the largest component in this case, so maybe someone in the comments can let me know. Finally, I want to point out two more united churches that I've added to the chart, this time in the Anglican section, as in these two cases, it was the Anglicans who were the largest components. In 1927, Anglicans in India became independent as the Church of India, Burma, and Ceylon. However, after the country itself achieved independence, the Anglicans in South India merged with the Methodists, as well as with the South India United Church, which was itself a union of Congregationalists and Presbyterians. The new United Church was called the Church of South India, and to this day it is the largest Protestant denomination in South Asia. The Church of North India was formed later in 1970, but basically it too represents a merger of Anglicans, Methodists, Presbyterians, and Congregationalists. Okay, so that was a look at the Baptists and Methodists, as well as the First Great Awakening. Next time, we'll be covering the Second Great Awakening, which resulted in several new branches on the tree, including the Restorationists, the Latter-day Saints, the Adventists, and the Plymouth Brethren. Thanks for watching.
Plymouth. Again, shout out to Useful Charts. Y'all see it on Twitter, Instagram, and obviously YouTube. Go follow that brother as he does amazing work. And I got this channel because I want to support these brothers. So every video that you see me watch and react to, I go on there. I have three accounts. I have this account at my personal account, and I also have another account from when I actually had a YouTube channel with a group that I had a while back. So each and every video that you see me react to, I personally go in, like all the videos with those 3 accounts and watch them all the way through because watch time matters, y'all. If y'all didn't know, watch time is very important. So I just want you guys to know that I do what I can to support these channels, and I don't just take these videos and show them without, showing my support. So y'all need to go show your support as well. Go look at these channels, go support them because man, the more that we have people supporting all these channels, the more that the truth gets out, and that's what I'm all about here at the Scripture Plug is plugging in these resources. So if you don't know, you can find out because it's never a bad thing to learn. It's never a bad thing to have an understanding of where, Methodists came from or Baptists and kind of get an understanding of where these splits and everything have come from. So, go follow useful charts. Um, oh no, he's asking DW. So since you guys are talking about once saved, always saved in the chat, I'm the one who brought it up. My bad, y'all. But I am a believer. I used to believe in once saved, always saved, and I still kind of do because I believe in Hmm, how to say it? So I understand the arguments when it comes to, the branches being cut off, and I understand that the church, early church, taught from the church fathers taught that we're not once saved, always saved. So I see both sides of where the reformers. I don't even want to say reformers, but where the Protestant movement came from. I see where they get their understanding from, and I see where the Orthodox and Catholics get their understanding from. I see all that. So to me, I'm still stuck in the middle. I'm still stuck in the middle, um, and it's because both are amazing to me, and I think where I'm stuck at is a good spot for me because I don't I believe in that if you are truly saved, as of where I'm at right now. I believe if you're truly saved, you're going to keep Jesus' commandments. You're going to uh, um, pray. You're going to fast. You're going to read. You're going to fellowship. You're going to do all these things that are going to help you grow in the spirit. You're not going to continue to indulge in these the fleshly desires. So I believe that if you have a relationship with God, you're going to continue to display that. So, but I also believe that a lot of people who say they do have a relationship with God, and this is something I have to tell myself quite a bit. I have to tell myself that, well, if I truly love God, then why am I doing these things that I know I'm not supposed to do? And I've had to, pray about things like that for a long time. So I'm kind of stuck in that place where it's like, I do believe it, but then again, I also believe both sides. And that's probably why I'm a product orthodox. Throw all of them together. That's probably why I got me where I'm at right now. But the good thing is the Lord has me learning. He has me with the understanding and desire to find out, you know, where the truth is. Now, granted, again, I think I have a basic understanding and a true understanding of what the truth is, but these little nuances still could potentially matter and really might matter a lot in the future. So, that's kind of where I'm at today when it comes to that. God bless you, Tom. God bless you, Tom. I appreciate you. Tom, OG right here. Tom been showing support and love since, man, I don't know when. Not saying I have a lot of followers now or subscribers now, but shoot, when I had like 300 subscribers, Tom was one of them. God bless you, Tom. God bless you, only love. DW, appreciate you. Carol, appreciate you. Una was in here earlier. Marion, God bless you. My favorite heretic, Dizzy, he was in here. Shout out to Dizzy, being the heretic that he is. Lord willing, we get you to know the truth. Don't pick on Dizzy too much, y'all. I want him to keep coming back so that he can continue getting his truth and eventually, hopefully, turn his life over to God. So don't pick on him too much. But if y'all see that heretic, Kamosh, y'all see him, crush him, destroy him. Anytime that you see him, I'm annoyed with him. I'm waiting for two of my answers. I've been waiting 2 weeks now for one, or 3 weeks now for one, and about 7 days for another. So shout out to ICU Dog for jumping in for the first time. Appreciate you. Rachel, always love. Moderator status. Woo woo. Uh, everybody else who I haven't necessarily seen, I think I said DW. Ali G was up here earlier. Yusuf was up here earlier. I appreciate all you guys. Um, Real quick, so tomorrow I'm probably around lunchtime because I'm off tomorrow. I'm probably going to be reacting to a video with the panel of Hatun Tosh, David Wood, Anthony Rogers. Um, I forgot this guy. I think he's an ex-Muslim, and there's a couple other people on this panel, and they're breaking down the violence and the truth that is surrounded by Islam. So they're going to be breaking down and answering questions about these dilemmas in Islam. So that's what I'll be watching tomorrow. So I think for me that would be like 12 o'clock, or probably 11:30. Yeah, probably 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, or 11 or 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. So that's where I'll be watching that. So if you guys want to come out on your lunch breaks, or if you're off tomorrow too, come on and join you boys, so we can just learn about these arguments and how these amazing apologists completely destroy Islam and how they like to lie and all that stuff. This week, I'm pretty sure I have more reactions coming out. I have reaction. Obviously, Sam Shamoon. Sam Shamoon's my homie, man. I need, I'm gonna reach out to Sam and see if he wants to come share his testimony. That's what I'm gonna do. That's one of the when I got God Logic, I was so happy. When I got Radar Apologetics, Pro Life Chloe, when I got One Way Apologetics, so happy. I got a mean podcast coming up here soon. But Sam Shamoon, if I could get Sam Shamoon to come up here and share his testimony, I wonder how long it would be before he yells at me and and kicks me off my own live. But that would be awesome to have him come up, because he actually supported me a while back as well. So I appreciate that, brother. So I'm gonna try to reach out to him and get him to come share his testimony. And man, some good stuff coming up. I think I have some Anthony Rogers reactions coming up. Um, some more Reform Zoomers. By the way, Reform Zoomer. If you're not following Reform Zoomer, that brother right there makes crazy videos. If you've ever seen the church denomination videos, or the heretic videos, or the um, 40 atheist uh, arguments debunked videos, go watch Reform Zoomer. He does great job. He's very comical with his videos. So I got one of those coming out um, with him. Not with him, but obviously reacting to him. But I would love to have him on, share his testimony too, because he's doing great work. So I love Reform Zoomer, Inspiring Philosophy. So many people. I got some more speaker corners videos coming out. Shout out to I forgot who in the comments asked, but I have some Bob from Speakers Corners. I'm gonna be reacting to some of his videos because I hear he's a goat when it comes to destroying the Muslims or anybody at Speakers Corner, mopping the floor with these guys. So Bob from Speakers Corners, I'm about to, look into. I might have to do a lot of his live though, because most of his, I don't really think he has any that are quite short. I think most of them are pretty lengthy. So, I think I probably have to do some lives with Bob. But I do have one coming up with Bob from Speakers Corner. So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Michael Jones, fantastic. Yes, Michael Jones is great. Uh, do you have you done a video on Polycarp? Or I've have I think I have. I don't know if it's specifically, but it's about the church fathers. Who asked that? Was that ICU dog? Uh, ICU dog. So I've done reactions to uh, videos that talk about church fathers and how we know the authors of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, because they talk about it being anonymous, things of that nature. So I have those out. So did a video with, not with, excuse me, but reacting to Inspiring Philosophy, because he just dropped a video not too long about church fathers. So I do have some church father videos that actually just talk about how we know what we know is true. So I do have some of those. I see you, dog. Also, the gospel truth. There's a brother, if you guys don't know, there's a brother by the name of Albie. Albie Al on YouTube, the Assyrian guy. He is amazing. Like, he's a mini Sam Shamoon, where when it comes to scriptures, he can just blurt them off the top of his dome. He has a debate with um, somebody coming up here soon on the gospel truth. So y'all need to go check out gospel truth. And also, he has a debate coming out tomorrow on man, hold on, let me go look for that video, y'all. Because I know it's gonna be crazy. Because if y'all don't know Albie, that brother right there is cold. That brother right there is cold with the debates, with just his mind, how it works. He's also very short tempered, and I like that because it's funny when people make fun of people. Um, at least to me, anyway, because I'm still childish in that respect. Which is another reason why I love Sam Shamoon, because he'll come at you, and that's what I love. somebody who ain't afraid to tell you about it. Dang, I can't find it. Well, anyway, if I do find it, I'll probably post it in my community so that y'all can go check it out and whatnot. Man, what else do I got? What else do I got coming up? So, John the Baptist, last apostle, Polycarp. Huh? What do you mean by that? I see you, dog. What do you mean by that? But yeah, church fathers are amazing. I love church fathers. I love learning about what they got to say. My favorite, I can't remember the quote off the top of my head, but one quote that I love using because I'm still very basic, not basic. I don't want to say that, but when I do like apologetics or polemics, I like to stick to a few things. Like I don't have a huge repertoire that I use. So one of the things that I love using for these people out there, whether they be atheists, Muslims, or Unitarians that love to say that the Trinity came after the Nicene Creed, is what I love doing is um, Saint Ignatius. Saint Ignatius, who lived well before the Nicene Creed. He was the apostle of John, and he has quotes in his letters to um, Ephesus, um, Philad- I think it's Philadelphia. Well, he just has about 7 letters to different churches, and in these letters, he breaks down the uh, uh, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit all being God. So without using the Trinity as in, the coined word Trinity, he talks about all of them being God, but still there being one God. And also for those who try to say, especially Unitarians that try to, or JWs who try to say that in the beginning was the Word and the Word was God and the Word was a God, when you bring up Saint Ignatius, who is again the disciple of John who wrote that book, you can show that, well, why do you believe that he states that is a God when his disciple is actually telling you right here at the time that it was written what John actually meant? Because again, he says the word is God and that word is Jesus. So um, that's some of the things that I enjoy doing, just finding these real solid arguments and then sticking with those. And until people can like refute those, that's kind of what I stick with. So I love church fathers for that reason because, again, whether it be Origin, whether it be um, Justin Martyr, Ignatius, whoever, all these church fathers, Polycarp, Papias, have quotes about the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, as in, the true God, the triune God, well before Nicaea when all these people try to say, "Oh, after Nicaea and Constantine and all this other stuff." With that being said, at this point, I'm just rambling, y'all. I still got to make some more videos. I got to do some more of these reactions, but I do appreciate you guys for showing up. Appreciate you guys for being in the comments, rocking with your boy. I see you, dog. Much love to you. Only love. Always love. Dizzy. David Heretic. Keep him around. Hopefully, you come to know the truth and get out your heretical views because it's leading you to a spot that you probably really do not want to be in, even though you don't believe in that spot. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be real as all get out once you get there. So hopefully, come to know the truth. Um, and DW, much love as always. Appreciate the follow. I still got to follow you back on TikTok. That's what I'm about to go do. Follow you back on TikTok. That being said, appreciate you guys so very much. This has been your boy, the Scripture Plug.Albert, and I'll catch you guys next time. Hopefully, some of you guys will catch up with your boy tomorrow. God bless you. Love you. Later.